is October 31st. We are here in Saguaro National Park, the east side. We just passed through the entrance station and jumped right onto the one-way Cactus Drive road. It's about 8 miles, and we have 2 different hikes planned today. If you look at the map, we are currently here. We're going to drive around. We're going to do this nature trail. We continue through, and then at the very end there's the Homestead Trail, and then we exit back out. We'll stop at the visitor center since it was not open yet when we got to the park. We are at the first overlook, the Sonoran Valley Overlook here in the park. And the sign behind me says that the Saguaro National Park has some of the most diverse cacti in all of the nation. In the car, we were just talking about how this park doesn't feel as secluded as the west side did. When we were there yesterday, it felt like you were really in the middle of nowhere. And here you can see houses pretty much right outside of the roadway that we're on. We pulled over for this cactus overlook, and the sign says that it's about good neighbors. Houses in the distance form part of the low-density neighborhood that creates a buffer between the park and the rapidly growing communities out here. So kind of what we were just talking about, that this one, the east side really isn't as isolated feeling as the west side. It's almost like we knew what the signs were going to say, but we really didn't. The other thing we had been commenting about in the car was that there weren't as many saguaros here. We didn't see as many as in the last park. It was more prickly pears that we've been seeing. This sign talks about that back in the early 1930s, this place was teeming with saguaros, and then they began to die off rapidly. And scientists had discovered that when the temperature falls below freezing for more than 20 hours, it actually kills the saguaros. So after it was made into a national park, they really started to make a concerted effort to try to salvage stuff as much as they can. And slowly but surely, the saguaros are starting to make a little bit of a comeback. But at one point, it was thought that all of the saguaros in this park would be gone by the late 1980s. First little jaunt for today, the Desert Ecology Trail. It should be about 0.3 miles, and it looks like it's just a short little path that loops us through some of the
ecology of the desert.
The ecology of the desert. There seem to be more trees here, similar to the one that is behind me. I believe this is the velvet mesquite. It says that this tree or this plant plays a vital role in providing food for some of the animals here in the area and also shade for young saguaros. The fruit or the nuts that actually fall off of the tree can be ground up to make a sweet flour, and it was food that was used or made by people a long time ago. On the trail, if you need to stop and rest your feet for a minute, they have plenty of these benches where you can sit down and cool off if you start to overheat. It is a pretty easy trail. It's all paved, so it would be ADA accessible if you were out here, but otherwise it's just an easy walk, nice, level, and flat. So I have just been schooled. I have been saying saguaro this entire time, referring to the large cactuses. It's actually saguaro. So there is no G, or the G is silent in the name. So it's not saguaro, but saguaro. We just wrapped up with the Desert Ecology Trail. It's time to hop back into the car. There's a couple more waypoints before we get to the Freeman Homestead Trail. An interesting fact about this valley behind me is it says that during the heavy summer rains, it becomes a torrential area of water coming through. Sometimes the road actually ends up being closed to here in the park because of all of the flooding that is coming through. Other animals that live down there, which you don't normally see, are the tortoise and the couch spadefoot toad.
This is probably one of the coolest overlooks that we've been to on this drive so far. The other part of the drive has been just okay, but this has all the saguaros, all the cactuses and everything like that. So it's a really good view that we got here. One of the best so far in the park. I think we're at our last overlook on the drive before we get to the homestead. And this one basically is, so right behind me is the Rincon Peak. I guess it's the second highest peak in the park. It's about 8,400 feet above sea level. It's hard to tell, but I think it's right like in that area. Although this looks taller here, in reality this over here is taller. So I think that's the Rincon Peak right there.
We weren't quite at the last overlook back at the Rincon Peak. Here we are at the Javelina Rocks. It says the layer cake looking rock here is called Javelina Rock, named after its favorite inhabitant, the javelina. And some javelina facts. Javelinas are peccaries, not pigs. And they can only bear 1 to 3 young at a time. They weigh about 60 pounds and they have sweat glands on their backs.
So we walked out to the Javelina Rocks, just a little tiny path. It's probably, I don't know, 1/10 of a mile or so. And I'm standing on one of the rock formations and have a pretty decent view.
We've arrived at the Freeman Homestead Trail. Let's get on the trail and see what's left of the old homestead.
It's about 9:20 in the morning and the temperature has risen a little bit. I think when we got to the park it was in the low 60s. It's now, I think, what, 75?
75, 77.
Yeah, 75 or 77. So not too bad. Hopefully we can do this mile trail or mile hike and not too long at a time so that we can get back to the car before it gets too hot.
One pleasantry so far on this trail is that we do have a wind, which makes the temperature obviously not feel quite as bad. So hopefully the wind is with us through the whole loop, so that way we don't get stuck in the times where you're walking in the same direction as the wind, and then you're kind of just getting, you know, heat boxed in there. So let's give a thumbs up to the wind. The mound behind behind us is all that remains of the Freeman Homestead. It was built in the early 1930s when he was granted about 640 acres here in Saguaro National Park. Obviously it wasn't a park at that time, but they built a 3-room adobe building here for a family of 9. Now that we have finished up with the homestead, it's back on the trail to finish up the last half of the loop. We still have the wind, which is very nice. It's helping to keep the temperature a little bit at bay. So off we go.
We have just finished up this short little hike. It wasn't too bad, although it did get a little bit warm at the end, so I would not want to hike it any later in the day or in the summer when it's a little bit warmer. Although there wasn't much out at the homestead area, it was just that mound of dirt. It's pretty impressive to know that family came out here to live and basically succeed out here. I'm not sure exactly how long that family stayed, but it looked like from the little information board down there that you know, they came in on the 30s and then the park bought it out on the 1950s. So, you know, up to 20 years family lived out here in this very harsh environment, so you have to give them credit. Our last stop of the day will be the visitor center. Hopefully it's open. We'll go in there, we'll get a park patch and a park sticker, and then that'll be it for today.
Well, that's going to do it for Saguaro National Park. We were able to stop into the visitor center on the way out, and we got our patch and our sticker. And now we are headed to Van Horn, Texas, to get us closer to our next park on the stop. So we're going to pass through 2 different time zones over the 431 miles that we're going to travel. So we're going to end it now and say, see you on the next adventure. Bye.